Let's look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the Detroit Lions have not been big spenders in the free agency market thus far in the offseason, and that has led a lot of Detroit Lions fans and a lot of fans in general to begin questioning the methods and questioning the tactics of general manager Brad Holmes. People saying that he can't convince top tier talent to come to Detroit, that he isn't good enough to get these big time free agents and these priority free agents to come to the Motor City. And a lot of people are beginning to question whether or not he can build the team properly without having big name free agents. And some people are just bored because free agency hasn't been all that exciting for the Detroit Lions, and they just want something to happen. They want new players, they want fresh blood, and they want new life in this organization. But today I'm going to talk about why the Detroit Lions haven't been very active in free agency and why they don't necessarily need to be very active in the free agency market. Going over what their strategy is, knowing how Brad Holmes actually builds teams and actually wants to build this roster, it's not all that surprising that they've only made one free agency signing on the day of recording. So with that being said, we are going to get right into talking about Brad Holmes' free agency methods and why the Lions have been more conservative than a lot of people may have originally thought. Starting off, I just want to talk really quickly about the offensive side of the football, because when you look at this offense, there's not that many pieces left to add, right? You have a top 20 quarterback in Jared Goff. I'd say pretty solidly a top 20 quarterback, a quarterback that's taken his team to the Super Bowl, so we know that he can do it. A quarterback that has made big throws, a quarterback that has outdueled Patrick Mahomes, a quarterback that has outdueled Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback that on his best days, he is a quarterback that can single-handedly win you a football game. And if you're looking at just the latter half of the season, just the last 7 games of Jared Goff's 14 in 2021, he played like a borderline top 15 quarterback, right? 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, having multiple games of 100+ passer rating, and leading the Detroit Lions to 3 straight home wins at the end of the NFL regular season. Jared Goff finished the season playing like a top 15 quarterback, and if he can continue that form into 2022 without the slow start and without the regression like we saw early in 2021, Jared Goff can play up to bare minimum a top 15 quarterback in the NFL, an upper half quarterback in the NFL. You know, if he plays like the quarterback that played against Arizona, if he plays like the quarterback that played up against the Green Bay Packers, if he plays like the quarterback that beat the Minnesota Vikings, that's a guy that we can win with, and that's a guy that you can make an argument is a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. The Lions also have a top, I'd say, 10 receiving back in the NFL. I'd say a top 25 running back in DeAndre Swift, but he's a top 10 receiving back. He's one of the best receiving backs in the NFL, and especially with Kamara potentially missing time and CMC not being always available, that bumps DeAndre Swift's value up even more. I know he missed 4 games in the 2021 season, but when he's healthy and when he's on his game, he is one of the hardest running backs to defend in the NFL. You look at a top 10 offensive line unit in the NFL with Decker, Jackson, Ragnow, Big V, and Penei Sewell. They bring back all 10 players from the offensive line a season ago, and an offensive line that even with significant injuries finished as a top 10 offensive line in the NFL. They just brought in a Pro Bowl wide receiver to pair with the wide receiver going into his second season that broke franchise records in year 1, and you have a top 7, top 5 tight end in the NFL when he is healthy. The Lions offense should not have that many problems with a proper organization and with proper play calling in the 2021 season, in the 2022 season, which leaves the Lions to primarily focus on the defensive side of the football, primarily safety and linebacker. The Detroit Lions have been slandered a little bit on social media for not being aggressive in the free agency market, for not signing Myles Jack, for not signing Marcus Williams, for not signing Allen Robinson or any of the big name free agents, right? Tyrann Mathieu was a big time free agent. Khalil Mack was up for trade. There was a lot of big name guys that got big name contracts. JC Jackson's another one that I saw Lions fans really hoping for, and that I saw Lions fans complaining that we didn't give him big money to come to Detroit. But when you look at it from Brad Holmes' perspective, why would you pay $70 million to Marcus Williams when you could spend $12 million, $10 million on Jabril Peppers and get a really good player? Maybe not as good as Marcus Williams, but still get a really good starting piece for your franchise for significantly less cap space and for significantly less money. Why give $16 million to Myles Jack when you could get Kazir White, when you could get Leighton Vander Esch for $4-5 million a season, right? Why spend big money on free agents when you can get solid, if not adequate, production to the guy that's getting $70 million, to the guy that's getting $16 to $20 million, right? If you can pay $5 million and still get the production that you would get out of Myles Jack that you'd have to pay $16 million out of, why pay that guy $16 million when there are other guys that can play that role just as well, if not better? And just because they're not big names in flashy news articles doesn't mean these players can't be good ones. And look at the talent that's still available in free agency. Matt Ioannidis, Landon Collins, Jabril Peppers, Leighton Vander Esch, Jayon Brown, Rashaan Evans, and Anthony Walker are all available, as well as Deshaun Elliott, as well as Deshaun Elliott, as well as Kazir White. All of these players are going to be cheap, young talent with chips on their shoulders, and the Lions don't need to break the bank to bring in Myles Jack. They don't need to break the bank necessarily to bring in Allen Robinson when DJ Chark is $10 million, right? Why spend $20 on Allen Robinson when you could spend $10 million on DJ Chark and still get a good product? Why spend all this money on big name free agents just to break news and just to, get in the NFL media when you could get good quality production for significantly less of a cap hit and for significantly less money? And honestly, the Lions don't need free agency this year, right? They have a lot of picks. They have 10 picks in the NFL draft, 5 of which are in the top 100. You want to talk about the Lions' biggest needs? We already mentioned that the Lions' offense is pretty much set. You might want to address wide receiver one more time, right? You might want to address backup quarterback late in the rounds. But other than that, and maybe a backup tight end if you can't find one in free agency, but other than that, your offense is fairly set, and your offense is supposed to be pretty productive in the 2022 NFL season under the new guidance of offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. So you can put all 5 of those first picks, even maybe the first 7 picks, towards the defensive side of the football. Maybe 6 of those 7, with one of those being for a wide receiver. But you look at this draft class in just a hypothetical, right? Let's say you draft 2 safeties in this class, being Kyle Hamilton at 2 and one later in the rounds, right? One at like 170, one at the early 200s, like a JT Woods, a Smoke Monday, a Nick Cross, or a Bubba Bolden. That's your safety group right there. A safety group of Tracy Walker, Kyle Hamilton, Will Harris, and Bubba Bolden, or JT Woods, or Smoke Monday, Nick Cross, whatever that depth safety is going to be. That is a pretty solid 4 safeties deep, and you can even address one in free agency if you really want to, but they don't have to because they can draft their way into success in this draft with all their picks. You want to talk about linebacker depth? The Lions are in a position at pick 32 to maybe, if they're lucky, get a guy like Nakobe Dean at pick 32, but if not, at pick 66, you're going to have an opportunity to get Damone Clark, Brandon Smith, and maybe, if they're lucky, Chad Muma, the linebacker from Wyoming. You talk about the edge rusher position. Okay, what if we can't draft an edge? First off, the Lions' edge rushers are not bad. Romeo Okwara is returning from injury. Julian Okwara took significant strides a season ago. Charles Harris is returning, being a 7.5, 8 sack player from a season ago, with a lot of his production actually coming when Romeo Okwara was on the field, having 4 games with a sack back to back from weeks 2 to 6. all of those games, Romeo Okwara was on the field and Charles Harris was playing in a minimized role because of Trey Flowers, and he still put up 7.5 sacks. He was a game wrecker versus Arizona. He was a game wrecker versus the Minnesota Vikings. Our edge rushers are not a big problem, and they're definitely not the biggest problem of this team. Do you still draft one? Sure. Can you pair Julian Okwara, Romeo Okwara, and Charles Harris with a Boye Mafa, Drake Jackson, or Maja Sanders at pick 34 or pick 66? Absolutely. So you're talking about your first 5 picks. You're talking about your first 3 picks, right? Pick 2, pick 32, and pick 34. You can address safety, linebacker, and edge rusher in those first 3 picks, still get a pretty good, pretty solid wide receiver at pick 66, and double up at linebacker, double up at safety. You can draft your way to success if you're Brad Holmes, and you don't necessarily need free agency in order to be successful in the 2021 season. They can plug all of their holes on the roster with those 10 picks in the NFL draft in August or in April, right? They don't need free agency. And sure, can the Lions go out, and do I want the Lions to go out and sign some smaller contract guys with high upside? Yes. Do I want the Lions to go out and get a Kazir White, an Anthony Walker, a Jabril Peppers, a Jayon Brown, guys that aren't going to command elite money but can still give you above average production? Absolutely. But do they need to go out and draft play, or do they need to go out and sign big name guys? No. Do they need anybody in free agency? Not really, because they have a lot of their returning members from a season ago. A lot of their big contributors from last season have returned. Charles Harris, Alex Anzalone, Tracy Walker, lots of guys that produced a season ago have returned to the team. Guys like Brock Wright, our entire special teams unit, Jack Fox, Riley Patterson, Scott Daly, and Gaidon Egbubuke, all returned on exclusive right tenders. We are returning all the talent from last year with adding a Pro Bowl wide receiver to the offense, with a more comfortable Jared Goff and a better offensive coordinator, with hopefully, fingers crossed, a better offensive system and better offensive scheme. The Lions are not in a bad position. The Lions need to address a couple positions on defense. Like I said, double up at safety in the draft, maybe double up at linebacker, and draft an edge rusher at 34. And the Lions defense is kind of set. Should they go out and sign a couple of guys? Sure. Could they build linebacker depth with Kazir White? Sure. Could they build safety depth with Deshaun Elliott or Jabril Peppers? Absolutely. But do they need to? Do they need to go out and force themselves to spend big money and set the Lions back in cap space just to break some news in March when really they're building their team in April? Not really. The Lions are not in that poor of a position right now, and although the Lions went 3-13-1, although they've only made one free agency signing, they can fix and address a lot of their issues in the NFL draft. And because of that, because of all of their high picks, because of having 2 first-round picks and 5 picks inside the top 100, they don't need free agency all that badly. So with all that being said, that is that for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you guys think? How are you guys feeling about this free agency process? Personally, I love this approach. I love that the Lions are addressing their contributors from a season ago. They went out and they got a player that they felt was good value that can really help the offense in DJ Chark, but they're not forcing themselves to get free agents. They're not forcing themselves to pay $20 million to Allen Robinson. They're not forcing themselves to pay $70 million to Marcus Williams. Would I have loved both of those guys? Absolutely. And would both of those guys have had bigger impacts on the Lions than maybe DJ Chark? Sure, but DJ Chark is a Pro Bowl wide receiver that we're getting for probably half the price of Allen Robinson. Right, Deshaun Elliott, Jabril Peppers is going to be less than half, maybe even less than a quarter of the price that Marcus Williams signed for with the Baltimore Ravens. So Brad Holmes is being smart. And I know everybody's bored. I know it's March and there's no football, and maybe you're not into March Madness or anything like that. And maybe you just want breaking news so you have something to talk about with your Lions buddies and you have something to talk about with this Lions team. But I'm here to say, just stay patient, because Brad Holmes is building this team, right? He's building this team through the draft, and they don't need a lot of big name free agents. They don't need a lot of people in order to make this team better and in order to improve this team by 2022's start. So with all that being said, that is it for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.